This is Keone and Creepy, where Keone practices her gargoyle skills. She's very good. Let me just move this paw really quick and then I can get the whole thing and then you can lay back down. Alright, yep, short-lived. Short-lived, but wondrous indeed. She's gonna bite it. First she's gonna bite. Okay. And she's gonna make some biscuits.
Keone, those biscuits look delicious.
They do indeed, my dear. Hey, hi, hello. My name is Steph Chef, and this is Crochet and Creepy, where I tell you something creepy and make you something cute. Just tail whipping me in the face. All right. Hey, hi, hello. My name is Steph Chef, and this is Crochet and Creepy, where I tell you something creepy and make you something cute. So today, while I regale you with tales of the creepy, I'm going to be working on this guy. Remember him? He remembers you. It's well on its way to being a full-sized cloak. Definitely grown a lot since the last time we worked on it, but here we go. So today I'm going to tell you about something that I had never heard of before, the Taliesin Massacre. First, I'm going to tell you about one of the victims, Mary Borthwick. She was born in 1869 in Iowa, and for reasons unknown to me, she went by Mama. Mama had two sisters, Jessie and Elizabeth. I don't really know too much about her childhood, but when she turned 30, which was kind of old back in those days for a woman, she married a man named Edward Cheney. Cheney was an electrical engineer from Oak Park, Illinois, which is where he and Mama lived with their two children. For a while, Mama was content living the housewife life, TM, but she was a very intelligent and driven person, so I think that after a while, the monotony of it all started to really get to her. One of the things that Mama is known for doing is translating the works of a Swedish feminist named Ellen Key into English. Mama was a feminist herself, and she really admired Key. So while she was living in Oak Park, Mama met a woman named Kitty at a social club, and they became friends. However, spoiler alert, Mama was not the best friend to Kitty in the end. So as it turns out, Kitty's husband is this new up-and-coming architect. So Mama's husband, Edward, hires him to design and build a new house for he and Mama to live in. So Edward and Mama are like, sweet, we're gonna have this snazzy new home built by this snazzy new architect. Sounds peachy. And it totally would have been, except when Mama met this architect, it was over, folks. They fell super hard for each other. So this architect and Mama started spending a lot of time together, which in those days was pretty inappropriate and heavily poo-pooed. The architect had this fancy yellow car, and he and Mama were often seen riding around in it together. Ugh, my pearls. As you can imagine, this was pretty scandalous for those times, since both of them were each married to other people, and they both had children with said other people. Oopsie. But Mama and the architect didn't really care about any of that. They just wanted to be together. Okay, do you know who the architect was? Do ya? 'Cause I didn't. I had no idea, but it was the architect, Frank Lloyd Wright. Were you surprised? I hope so, because I was playing very coy with that. Frank Lloyd Wright respected Mama's intellect, and he actually considered her an equal of his, which was pretty rare because he considered himself to be quite the special butterfly, which was probably his mom's fault, but that's another story for another time. He also supported Mama's feminism, which was not the popular opinion at the time, and that was a really big deal for her. So in 1909, Frank and Mama left their respective spouses and children and jetted off to Europe together. Probably not in a jet, though. After about a year, Wright headed home back to the States, and Mama continued to stay in Europe, which is when she started to translate Key's works. She also began the process of obtaining a divorce from her husband. Back in the U.S., Wright had obtained a piece of land near Spring Green, Wisconsin. His mother's family was from around there, and he had grown up pretty nearby. There, he designed and built a new home/studio that he named Taliesin. The goal was for he and Mama to live there once her divorce from Cheney was final. That happened in 1911, and Mema was finally able to join Frank at Taliesin. The people of Spring Green, however, were not very happy about that because Kitty, remember her, she would not grant Frank a divorce. So he and Mema were living together in sin. Ugh. Kitty refused to give Frank a divorce because she hoped that this was just a phase and that eventually he would return to her. He did not. Eventually, the media and the people of Spring Green got over their judgy ways, or were at least more quiet about them, and Frank and Mema got to live happily at Taliesin for a few good years. But everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked. And I will, at some point, probably stop using that line in my videos, but today is not that day. Changing the yard, changing the yarn. So yes, they lived together happily until 1914. August 15th, 1914 to be exact. At that time, Wright was in Chicago working on the Midway Gardens project. For Mema, it seemed to just be another normal day at Taliesin. Her children, John and Mary, were visiting her, and around lunchtime, the three of them were sitting on their porch waiting for lunch to be served. The cook was a woman named Gertrude Carlson. She lived and worked at Taliesin along with her husband, Julian. He did a bunch of jobs around the estate, mostly like handyman stuff. So Mema and her kids were on the porch waiting for their lunch, and a bunch of Wright's other employees were in the dining room waiting. They were Emil Burdell, Thomas Brunker, David Lindblom, Herbert Fritz, and William Weston, along with Weston's son, Ernest. So Julian headed into the dining room where all of the men were waiting, and he said he noticed a stain on the floor, and he said he needed to go grab gasoline to clean the stain, which was, I guess, normal in those days because nobody seemed to bat an eye at that. But that seems pretty fishy, suspicious to me. So Julian goes to get the gasoline to clean the stain, and he returns with not only the gas, but an axe as well. And here is where things start to get really rough. Julian ended up killing Mema and her children right there on the porch with the axe. Then he went back to the dining room, locked the men inside, poured gasoline all over that building, and lit it on fire. The only two men who managed to survive the fire by jumping out of a window and avoiding axe-wielding Julian were William Weston and Herbert Fritz. They were able to get help and bring the fire department, but by that time, Taliesin was pretty well destroyed. Later, the sheriff and an angry mob ended up finding Julian hiding in a furnace. When they got to him, he tried to kill himself by swallowing a bunch of hydrochloric acid. That didn't work though, it just kind of ended up wrecking his insides. The mob wanted to kill him then and there, but the sheriff managed to convince them to let him bring him back to jail so that he could stand trial for what he had done. Julian's wife, Gertrude, the cook, was also arrested that day along with him. Pretty quickly, though, they determined that she was completely innocent and had no idea what Julian had been planning. She said that he had been acting more and more paranoid lately, and that he had even been sleeping with the axe. Since it was determined that she was innocent, the townspeople bought Gertrude a ticket to Chicago, and she left and disappeared after that. Probably she changed her name and never spoke about it to anyone ever again, and who can blame her? And Julian never actually got to stand trial because he ended up dying of starvation in jail. I read that it was because of the acid that he couldn't actually eat, but I couldn't ever find out if that was accurate or not, so who knows, but maybe. Unfortunately, though, he did take the secret of why he did what he did with him to his grave. He lasted in jail for about 3 weeks or so, and he never told anyone why he killed those people at Taliesin that day. Frank Lloyd Wright was, of course, devastated by the loss of Mema and their home, Taliesin. So he ended up rebuilding Taliesin in her honor, and he called it Taliesin II. Sadly, Taliesin II ended up burning down, but this time because of faulty telephone wiring and not a crazy murderer. Wright ended up building Taliesin III in the same spot, and that still stands to this day. He also built a home called Taliesin West in Arizona, And when I was growing up, we used to have this game called Phoenix in a Box, I think. And it was basically just Monopoly, but with the city of Phoenix instead of New York. And I remember seeing Taliesin West on there as one of the expensive ones, like one of the Boardwalk or Park Place ones. And that's my, 800 degrees of separation to Frank Lloyd Wright. Listen, it counts.
Okay.
She take Beth. She is cute. She is sweet. She have tiny pink on feet. So there you have it. That was the Taliesin Massacre. Had you heard of it? I had not. I feel like everybody has heard of Frank Lloyd Wright, but not very many people have heard of the Taliesin Massacre. So if you did, let me know in the comments. So normally this is where I would show you the progress that I made today on what we were working on, but as you can see, Mistress is not having it right now. She is comfy where she is, and I daren't move her. I don't think you can blame me. So instead, I will just bid you adieu. Thank you for hanging out with me today. On your way out, go ahead and give me a like and maybe even a subscribe, and I will see you on the next one. Goodbye now.